You're strong.
I know.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy. I'm Jared. I'm here with Britt. What's up, Britt?
Hello, hello.
And today we are discussing Wonder Woman and Superman Earth 1. Oh boy. So when Britt and I recently reread most of these series, I literally was checking my Twitter DMs, and then Britt says, I freaking hate Earth 1 Wonder Woman. We'll see later why. But it's one of those weird books. So I want to start off by saying, what is Earth 1? So Earth 1 was a graphic novel imprint, as opposed to like them coming out in terms of floppies. These came out only in graphic novels. That's why they were so infrequent, oftentimes to the detriment of the books, as in the case of like Earth 1 Batman. But it was, here's the funny thing. In Multiversity, they established that this is one universe, but they kind of make it impossible. Like in the case of like Green Lantern and Wonder Woman specifically, and we'll talk about that later. I'm like, there's no way this is one universe.
Yeah, okay, so with Earth One and how what DC wants is the multiverse, all over again. They're basically doing that with Black Label. They have Elseworlds back, and I would say that, yeah, Earth One varies between. I would say that Batman is very in line with mainline Batman. Superman is when you see the more realistic, quote unquote, dark take, or and then Wonder Woman, yeah, Jared, no, no, that is really.
This is gonna. If you thought Britt and I ranted when we talked about Tom King's Wonder Woman, oh boy.
I did see the Teen Titans one, and I did not read that one. I don't know if I want to.
Green Lantern was dope.
Okay, so see, that's the only positive. It's kind of like with the reviews, it really kind of like scares you off with some of the books. Like I said, mainline is very stagnant, boring, safe. And when you have Elseworlds, you do want to have a challenge for these characters. You do want that something to be different, However, it's some, choices that's like it should have been common sense of that this is, going way overboard, very controversial, and just unnecessary. And
So I take it you didn't enjoy those choices in Wonder Woman.
I did not.
As soon as I reread the book today of the time of this recording, and I remember looking at this and I'm like, yeah, this does not look good. But so essentially it was that, and it originally, by the way, there was supposed to be like an Aquaman Earth 1, but that like fell away when Manipul left DC. But overall, they had some cool stuff with this. Problem is they came out too infrequently and they were clearly not in a continuity. But let's start with Superman. Superman's the one I enjoyed the most, and it's written by J. Michael Straczynski. What's kind of funny, and Britt, you kind of touched on this in the PowerPoints. This is very much similar to Zack Snyder's Man of Steel.
Yeah, I think that what DC was going for, and again, we'll touch up on this a little later, but they wanted Superman to be, not everything comes easy for him, and to really just show him struggling with his identity, struggling with now he has the basically the weight of the world on on his shoulders, and this responsibility thrust upon him, and that is something that can't come easy, especially because of how he grew up, very simple. Um, and that is something that in modern times, this generation, they do have questions, of what is the path that they should take, what is um, just their place in the world. So yeah, that is questions that Superman, as an immigrant or refugee, is supposed to explore. But of course, DC does not do that often enough, and
Hmm.
even if it is explored, it's very glossed over, very condescending in a way too.
I'm gonna
And
call it the next Superman reboot. They're gonna make it where he's not even Kryptonian,
you
like he
know
was
what?
born on Earth.
Honestly, you can bookmark this, start or whatever, and it probably will happen.
Trust me, because DC has been trying to eliminate his Kryptonian heritage or like ignore it for so long, as in the course of like Superman Rebirth. So it's not that like out of the realm of possibility that they could go, do we really need that Kryptonian heritage when they already make, whereas in some continuities, the suit was made by Martha Kent, and it's like Superman is what I can do, Clark Kent is who I am, which is, by the way, the worst line from that freaking show.
Exactly. I mean, okay, so how did he get the powers? How did he, so the S, I mean, what is the S for? And having it just for super is very superficial and very shallow.
Mm-hmm.
In the powers, I mean, so that means making him a mutant or something? I don't know.
So
And
you want him to be
also,
a member of the X-Men. But what's kind of funny is
basically,
when I was watching a documentary on Superman, and I actually sent you the same documentary for a different reason, Britt. But it's like Dean Cain was doing an interview on that, and he talked about the thing that they wanted to do for Superman and Lois, or Lois and Clark. It's funny how the show that has Lois Lane's name first is the worst one. Or like the one I enjoyed the least. Interesting how that worked out. But it was like they intentionally wanted to focus on Clark, and I'm like, okay, you know what? That's a creative choice, and I appreciate that. It's just then when you have those cringe as hell lines that people. Here's the problem: creatives and fans repeat those lines. It would be one thing if it was like a line used in like a TV show and no one really repeated it. But the fact that it gets thrown around by fans that try to overhype Lois, that's when I have issues. By the way, if you want to watch that documentary, it's called Superman Up in the Sky. That's where it's revealed that after they married Lois and Clark, they regretted it.
and we have been
I,
saying
I
this since
sent
the
that to
beginning of the show.
Britt. I sent that to Britt, and with the time code, and I'm like, when you hear it, and then she literally said, "Oh, so we were right."
It's like you every time we go back and okay, so first with this show, we are here to bring facts.
Yep.
Yes, we have our opinions, but it's mainly to present facts about Superman and Wonder Woman. And, the things said, the things quoted, even if you don't have the specific quote on the presentation or, or something like that, it's 99 to 100% sure that, what the information that we present is somewhere that a creative has said, or it's in an article somewhere. We just have to find it. And for you to find a video that
An official
has,
video, not
yes,
a podcast interview. No, it's a legit like marketing tool that DC released.
yes, for them to release that, it has this sort of vindication, because so many times, so many um traditional fans, or maybe you are a fan of other ships, but they want to discredit Super Wonder fans for some reason. and
Mm.
that what we say is basically just coming out of our backsides. But, and it's all hearsay or it's just headcanons. No, here we don't really go by headcanons. The only headcanons or anything fictionalized, in that sense, is our shelterverse. you know, that is it. But
And
when
and
we
that's
are
marketed as a fiction universe. We don't say this is how they actually are.
right, but with what we're talking about, our discussions always have facts. That is why we take a week and we research, and with the pictures and the like I said, whether it's quotes or some type of information, it comes from legitimate sources.
Yeah.
And again, for it to be in a marketed video from WBDC of creative saying that they regretted the marriage and they wanted to get rid of it. It's kind of like, yes, that felt like vindication of this is what we've been saying. It's not about the ship of Superman and Wonder Woman. It is a known fact that just in general they can be shipping Clark with Lana. You know, it was a fact that they did not care for the marriage right after they married them off.
Because again, as my friend comic historian said when he came on my podcast, RIP again, when you marry superheroes to non-superhero characters, that severely limits the story. But anyway, so Earth One Superman. Now here's the thing. This is the one. There are many different reasons why I like this one the most, and we'll get into that. Chief among them, he never gets with Lois. Never. He gets with someone else that I believe is an original character for this book that, okay, I kind of dig. And the point is, not with Lois. And they literally do, Britt. So one of the things that I've always said what they could do, instead of having Lois be a love interest, have her be a rival journalist that's tracking Clark and trying to out Superman. They do that in this, and I'm like, ooh, interesting. And the Lex Luthor bit of this I like. So there was like a lot of like original ideas in this where I'm like, oh, okay. But of course, you have criticism. So it basically read like a movie, but they were like, Superman's too brooding, and so he's too dark, and he's not very proactive. I wonder what that sounds like. Could be a certain verse, movies, maybe by someone named Snyder.
Well, you have two now because that is how absolute is.
Yeah, I know. Oh, that's true. God damn it. 3, New 52.
Oh yeah, so it's like 4 different versions of Superman that has the criticism of brooding.
Yeah, but here's the thing: he wasn't brooding that much. Yeah, he had ish, but it's like Superman smiled plenty. It's like again when people say he never smiled in Man of Steel, and I'm like, oh, watch the movie. But I understand some of the criticism of this is that there are times in like the beginning of the story where he is very like. Nah, but here's the thing. Too many people read like classic Superman or watch the Christopher Reeve movie and treat it like that's how Superman should be automatically because that's how he was at the very beginning. And I'm like, no, because he starts off unsure of himself, like we just said, and then he grows and has a character arc, and then he becomes that version of the character we associate. Because here's the thing. We're modern... when I say they need to update Superman for the modern audience, what I typically mean is they have to modify their approach because the way Superman is for the most part works. But what you have to do, you have to show your work. You have to show the journey that leads to that Superman. It's the same reason why I love the Snyderverse because, again, I thought Superman was a dweeb. But when I saw Superman's beginning, and this was Zack's intention to break Superman down to his fundamental core. So once you understand who this character is at the core, you appreciate him more. That works because the modern audience now is less like this character automatically has to be this symbol, this like smiling, oh, gee willikers, a cat's in a tree. That's the ding I have against the. That's why, if you notice, even the gun Superman is gonna be brooding. He said it's a dark movie.
Yeah, the whole thing about people are so used to Superman just having, everything spoon fed, and given on a silver platter. The happy go lucky, broad shoulders, chest out type thing, preachy. Um, no, that doesn't always work. Uh, and even Phil Jimenez, he said that with Wonder Woman 175, I think, yeah, I believe it was 175, to have Clark crying, and Diana
Mhm.
holding him, editorial didn't want that. They didn't want to show him breaking down because they felt like, I guess they felt like that wasn't manly, you know. So with Clark showing different emotions, if he is sad, if he is brooding or something like that, first you have some fans thinking that brooding can only be Batman, which no.
No.
And second, you have where if he does show any type of challenge, and he doesn't overcome it as easily as they think he should, then that's not Superman. And that is honestly, that questions him being an inspiration, because when you are an inspiration, you are teaching, you know, people of the hurdles and challenges that you've gone through, and basically what you learned from them. And but being an inspiration, if you basically are spoon fed, no, that's not an inspiration. That's, very, I mean, just privileged. And
Or honestly, this is kind of the definition of toxic masculinity.
that's true. That's very true.
So,
You know,
it's like, because again, if you see Superman overcoming stuff, that's how that's the modern way. Again, this is going back to modern approach to storytelling. That's the modern way of telling the same story. That's why I say Man of Steel and even this book are telling the exact same, the for the most part, exact story of like the Reeve movie, but they're doing it in a modern way. The Christopher Reeve story is dude has powers, dude finds out he's an alien, dude leaves hometown to go to a city and become a journalist, dude becomes superhero and saves the world from a threat, and dude becomes a hopeful beacon of truth. They're telling the same story beats, but what they're doing they're taking a different approach, but they're still getting to the same point.
right. The I understand that Superman is supposed to be like this power fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still something. If you want to say that he's relatable, it can't be the shallow, superficial, um, Clark Kent, the nerd or whatever, is being ignored by Lois, but Superman is, she's chasing after Superman, that kind of stuff. You want that nerd uh, kind of commonness or whatever. That is that's something that's very dated.
Mm-hmm.
But in the real world, people want that emotional drive of these characters now. We want something that really speaks, and it's kind of like, why should we care for these characters? Why
Mm-hmm.
should we be inspired by them? Why should we invest in them? And how do we, see that our stories like Earth One, that's written correctly, let me reiterate that that's
Thank
written
you.
correctly, or Kingdom Come. That's
Yeah.
another very popular story that got a lot of people into DC and just comics in general. And it is a quote unquote dark story,
Well,
but
because
it's
Britt,
about over.
actually, you know what? You're about to make my point. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go
Oh,
on.
no, you're okay. It's about overcoming, and it's starting, a new beginning. So
Exactly.
these kind of stories we need,
Yeah.
because in the world today of, you know, turmoil and just no, you don't need that everything is sunshine and rainbows. No.
Well,
But you need to see. Mhm.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say you need to see the bad and the ugly, you know, to get to the good part. And
Yeah.
that is what these characters, I mean, I would like to explore more of that. And pretty much, again, yeah, it is a plug, but what we are doing with Shelterverse.
And that's what we're doing with all these characters. But the point I wanted to make, Britt, is that so one of the problems that creatives have writing Superman is so he's so powerful. How do you give him a threat that could possibly like affect him? My whole approach: give him a threat he can't punch, and when he can't punch, public perception, the feeling he can't punch isolation. So if you see him overcoming that, overcoming something that you could be the most powerful god amongst men, but you could still be brought down to earth by the feeling that you don't fit in a place or something like that. And then if you overcome that, that is Superman. That is inspiration right there. That shows not only the physical power, which DC tends to overly focus on, but also shows the power of the mind and the heart.
Right. I mean,
That's what you need.
right. I don't get why fans, again, I understand that this is an escape of the real world, but at the same time, we don't need to indulge in just the, happy-go-lucky rainbows. I just don't believe in that.
Yeah. I get what they're saying, but like we want him to be at the same goal. It's going to take longer to get there the way that'll get more people into the character. But anyway,
Right.
so what we get with Earth One is a more relatable and flawed Superman. That's one of the things I liked about this because it's more like Superman is going through struggles. What I immediately liked about this, and you brought it up here, is that when he first shows up to Metropolis, he tries being a scientist, a sports player. All of this is good, but it's not until he becomes a journalist that he actually figures out, okay, so this is something I want to do. And one of the things I really liked about Superman and Wonder Woman, and I'm not sure if this was in the Tomasi part. I hope it's not, but okay, you know what? We've given compliments to at least the volume 3 of Tomasi, so screw it. But it's more like when Clark says, "I became a journalist because that's hard, and it's hard to figure out how to write out ideas instead of just like punching them or something like that." And I kind of like Clark's approach to that.
Right. I would say that I still lean on either mixing or um, having him as a scientist is just something that needs to be explored, especially with being the son of a scientist, you know, and showing that Clark is intelligent. He has super intelligence. That is so overshadowed by Batman or Lois sometimes, to just reduce him to just this farm boy. And it's like, no, science and farming, agriculture can go hand in hand as well. So put that all together, and that makes him an even more layered character. With
Yeah.
journalism, he can still write, love to write, and as we, continue to reiterate that he's a global correspondent or something like that. But yeah, just to go straight into journalism and how journalism has changed, how we see it today, of, you want the facts, but at the same time, so many people are getting the story first from social media, you
Hmm.
know? So old school type journalism is very dated, is and we don't need to see that anymore. Superman, when they have Daily Planet scenes, it feels like it's still set in the 90s or 80s or something like that. Superman needs to, especially with being a global hero, he needs to move away from that. He can still be a journalist and a writer, but just be more global.
Exactly. And that's part of the whole Clark Catropolis thing from the new 52, why that worked. But so going back to this, it's like, again, now I don't want them to overdo the whole humanizing Superman thing, because that's where you get to like John Byrne's Man of Steel, because that's really what Byrne was brought on to do is essentially, and it's been said many times, turn Superman into a Marvel hero. And what do I mean by that? The way Marvel approaches superheroes is that they're regular people that happen to have powers, where DC treats it like they're gods amongst men that also sometimes want to like just hang out and be people. So there is some overlap there, but when you try and like over humanize Superman, that's where we get the whole de-emphasizing or downright xenophobic hate on the Krypton side. And in other words, what I'm trying to say is that you don't want to go too far. Like with Wonder Woman being a warrior or being a piece, there's a balancing act that needs to be done.
Right. And for some reason, they aren't creative enough to have that balance. It's always about choosing one over the other and just ignoring that side, or it's to a point where you don't want DC to talk about Krypton, because it feels like, yeah, at any moment they are going to say how evil and bad it was, and how glorify. While yes, the Kents and everything is nice,
and they're
and
important. They are
yes,
important to
very
Superman.
important, and
Arguably
Smallville,
more important than Lois.
exactly. Arguably, that's straight up fact.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you have to glorify this, again, this Americanized way, and the American way is of how that has been turned into something, again, so superficial and shallow. You know, that is
Yeah.
something else that isn't so layered as it's supposed to be. So
Yeah.
with Krypton and Smallville, again, blending his everything together, and that's what New 52 tried to do. We saw it at the
Hell,
end.
that's what Golden Age tried to do.
Yes, we saw in at the end with He Who Shall Not Be Named, that ruined the Superman and Wonder Woman book.
Okay, thank you.
That's very long-winded.
Long-winded, it's us. We have 3 hours and 43 minute podcast, Britt. You kidding?
He still had that scene where Clark, built the statues of Jonathan and Martha to be with Jor-El and Laura. That is one of the very rare positives that he did, but it showed the blending of his Smallville roots and his Kryptonian roots, or Krypton roots, and that is how the character is supposed to be. With choosing one over the other, it just shows how the creative limits, and that is how we have a very stagnant character.
Yeah, because honestly, when people say Superman's a hard writer, a hard character to write, or like when Tom King says Wonder Woman's a hard character to write, I'm like, no, it's not. Not if you actually want to write the character and understand who the character is, because you clearly don't. But anyway, so then here's another criticism that's levied against the Snyderverse, and it's hilarious how not only are the plots of this movie and the Snyderverse similar, this book, but also the criticisms it gets. See, the thing about Earth 1, and when you think about it, Man of Steel and the Snyderverse, is that it's a more darker, cynical world. Now, I get why people sometimes don't like that, because, again, like we said before, a superhero is supposed to be like escapism. But here's the genius of doing a dark world with superheroes that starts off dark. It doesn't stay dark, because here's what you do. Then you get to see the superheroes, particularly Superman, because that's partly why the L's sent him to Earth. In fact, in Man of Steel, and Britt and I will talk about this when we cover the DCEU later on this month, when the best scene in the Snyderverse that actually summarizes Superman to a T is when Jor-El says, you can be the bridge between their world. Essentially, he says, the symbol of the House of El means hope, and embodied within that hope is the fundamental belief and the potential of every person to be a force for good. And then Jor-El says, they will stumble, they will fall, but they will join you in the sun. That's what this is. This is essentially the idea that the world may start off dark and cynical, but with your inspiration, with your leadership, the way Superman kind of should be, if you lead them into the sun, then you get the more hopeful, upbeat universe that the DC universe turns into.
Right, but it's all about the journey. It's not about Superman to be accepted so fast, and just again having everything on a silver platter. It just takes away the investment.
Well, even on that, even the Snyderverse, when you get to like Batman versus Superman and then Zack Snyder's Justice League, yes. So real quick, when we talk about the DCEU, we will not be talking about the other version of Justice League. We'll be talking about the Snyder Cut. But anyway.
Oh, definitely not.
When you look at that, here's how inspirational Superman is. Not only does he unite, he takes Batman, a being that was like full of vengeance and anger, and Batman says, I failed him in life. I'm not failing him in death. There you go. The movie and the book practically shows you Superman inspires the world to be a better place.
Yes.
And that's the great part about Superman. Go ahead, Britt.
Oh, you just said what I was going to say.
All right, that's how like in sync Britt and I are. Like, we'll have times where I'll send her ideas for like shows or like even for the Shelterverse, and she'll go, "I was literally just thinking that."
Yes.
I'm like, "What is going on?" But that's why I like it when DC has the darker world, because then the inspiration, the effect that the Justice League have on Earth is more felt, because you see the world grow, and all of a sudden people are nicer to each other. Even in Jeff Johns' Superman Secret Origin, at the beginning of the book, when Clark first shows up to Metropolis, everyone is like he bumps into an old lady, and the old lady says, "Watch where you're going." Because it's like he was like all caught up in the city. He bumps into her, and she goes, "Watch where you're going." Cut to the end of the book, after Superman's established, another person is walking into Metropolis for the first time, bumps into the same old lady, and then that same old lady says, "You were looking up for him, weren't you?" And says, "Don't worry, you'll fit in great here." And I'm like, see, that's what you get when you give people the journey.
Right. It's all about the journey. I mean, it's like I said, it has something to do with creatives being lazy. Yes,
Yep.
these characters are almost 100 years old, but being that they are almost 100 years old, you can have different ideas. You don't have to be stuck in the same, status quo, and that is, honestly, that's kind of crazy that with these characters almost being 100 years old, there's only a handful of, stories that really stand out.
Exactly. Well, and what's kind of interesting, yes, I'm going to reference two things. I'm going to reference that DC documentary that Britt and I love so much.
Yes.
When Dennis Cohen, one of the founders of Milestone, he goes, sometimes you have to update the characters, because if the story's stale, it's not the characters, it's the writers. And one of my favorite quotes by Zack Snyder, he legit said, in reference to all the people saying he broke Superman, he goes, if your character, if one iteration that you didn't enjoy can break the characters, then maybe the characters aren't as strong as you think they are.
Yeah.
It's like me this way. Britt and I hate Tom King's Wonder Woman. The character is going to exist when Tom King leaves the book.
Right. She is, and maybe, hopefully she'll get a writer that actually gets her and won't write her in such an embarrassing, kind of offensive way.
True, but my point is like it's not going to be like it's not going to be broken for the next writer or like the writer down the line or like the writer down the line. The very fact that these characters have existed since the 30s shows you that these characters have the staying power to endure. Because there have been so many bad depictions of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, how they almost did an R word of Wonder Woman storyline, and she's still here. So it's like, yes, you can have versions that you don't necessarily enjoy, but they don't break the character.
Right. So that means DC, they don't have to be stuck in a safe, status quo, a conservative status quo, like the main line. If we know that you can explore different status quos, you can explore different plots, different whatever. And as long as it is a story that I would say that has a message, no matter how controversial it is, if the controversy is right, I have to say things worded right, because again, I am not giving any type of okay for Earth One Wonder Woman.
No, we'll talk about the many problems with that book.
So
but
no, I'm not saying that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not saying that. But if you want to explore controversy, it has to be something that is profound, that is something that will change the characters in a positive way, that could send a message in a positive way. New 52, again, it was faulty. However, still the message, especially with Clark and Diana's relationship, it was going on to outsiders, which is, immigrants or
Well, even on that, it was one of the few times that DC got mainstream attention. I mean, the very fact that there were articles written about that. But even on that, yes, they innovated. But you know what? You know how they innovated, Britt? They literally just did what they did when the characters first showed up. They just did it now. In other words, how Britt and I always say that, like, Action Comics Clark from Grant Morrison, that's just Action Comics number 1, 1938 Clark, but now.
Exactly. The way that they are challenging the status quo within 30s or 40s, Wonder Woman, that is how they're supposed to be now. They aren't, and yeah, we blame post-crisis because Superman was marvelized in the worst kind of way, with wanting to, I think what they wanted to do was turn him more into like Peter Parker, but the fact that they didn't understand what made Peter Parker, that is something that I think that is what happened. So you have Superman, and the fact that a big part of him, he isn't just a guy from a small town. He is a guy from a total different planet, rocketed from there, and then landed in a small town. That is something that's a big detail. That
Peter's not an alien,
right? He was bit by a experimental spider. That's it. But Clark's origin is so big, and also he is supposed to be a Moses allegory. You just quoted,
or even a Christ allegory.
Well, yeah, just any type of like that, to be that figure, we should say, of immigrants, refugees, of the oppressed, of adoptees, anything like that. That is Superman's story. So to take that away, you are really taking away a big part of the character. That's honestly far more important than being a reporter at the Daily Planet or having this Galoot type, fake persona.
Exactly. So, and then we get to hear about the major focus of this book is and Man of Steel. I love how this is so similar. It's how this world today, living now, would react if there is someone that showed up that could shoot lasers out of his eyes, could fly at hypersonic speeds, and could lift a tank over his head. Yeah, this is pretty much, because when you think about it, and they say this in like Man of Steel, as a matter of fact, when Perry White tells Lois to drop the story, he goes, I know you saw what you thought you saw, and you know what? I believe you. But do you have an idea how the world is going to react if they know that this guy is real?
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So,
but that's the thing. It's like here's the thing. That's what making Superman relatable it means. You don't have to make Superman like more human. What you do, you place him in as close to the real world as you can get, and then show how like he helps like the real world, in other words.
yeah. And why don't, like I said, with the world today and why can't we see how the world would react to a Superman? You know, why do we have to gloss over that important type thing? And yeah, especially with what's happening now and how diversity is being talked about, how immigration is being talked about, how, just anything that doesn't align with tradition, with what's accepted in society. Why do we have to gloss over that? Why can't we have that as something, emphasize more of? DC, with the stories that they're telling now, how they overhype certain things, and it's supposed to be so revealing and change the DC.
Remember when they said it's going to be a mystery on who Superwoman is, and they literally tell us in the first issue. I'm like, wait, do you guys know how to keep a secret? No.
I think, honestly, they just don't know how to. It's not telling a story. It's just, again, they don't want to rattle the table too much. They don't want to shake the table too much.
I know, even though that leads to sales, by the way. I'm just saying.
It would. And Williamson actually, he brought that up once, and he said that they know that controversy sells. However, it's something that
unless you're Tom King.
Right. However, it's something that he doesn't like, because he wants to have the characters happy. And
remember, he's a 90s reader, so post-crisis.
Yeah.
I mean, remember, Tomasi literally, for one of the covers of Superman Rebirth, had them recreating the image of Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, all those guys on the drums.
Yeah.
I'm like, I in his defense, I think that was a celebration of the 4th of July. But I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm like, see, here's the thing. On that, on the Americanism of Superman, you can't ignore that. Because here's the thing about Superman. He is a piece of American mythology. I understand that, like, he's been, like, adapted. And honestly, that could lead to some pretty cool stories. Hint, hint, Britt, like, winking. I hope you can see I'm winking into my camera. About Clark's patriotism being challenged. Because Clark is, as close as you can get, Clark is an American. But it's like, then he's like a global hero. So you could even do that story. And they've done that where, like, Superman is like has protected like immigrants. So it's like there are stories that you can do with that. DC's not going to do that, but because they're either lazy or cowards, honestly, either of those are the realistic option when it comes to DC. But it's like, that's the thing. That's why it's like, to be clear, I'm fine with like Clark being like, for lack of a better term, patriotic. But when you have writers like Tomasi that go really over freaking board, like when the cover of Superman Rebirth. I think it's the first cover, and it's literally the cover of the omnibus. Has Superman, Lois, and John in front of the American flag. I'm like, okay, guys, we get it. You see
And
what I'm saying, Britt? Because they can't. Because it's an interesting tightrope because you can't ignore Superman being a piece of American like culture and stuff, but you also have to acknowledge that he is also a global hero.
right, and it's the fact that they had the American flag. First of all, it was for the 4th of July
Mhm.
special, but also glorifying like the American history and how the military and the wars, just making it seem like America is just the, hero in a sense. That is something that you just should not do.
I mean, if you're talking about
And
World War II, we kind of saved the world, but
I don't think it was that one. I think it was another war that he referenced to that was very
well,
controversial.
the point is, yeah. I mean, Britt, you know that I'm fair. You know that I'm pretty patriotic, correct?
Right.
Even I acknowledge America's done some pretty messed up stuff in the past, but
Exactly.
that's
That's
the
what I'm trying
thing,
to say.
and that's the cool thing, Britt. So I'm sure you're familiar with the original Marvel Ultimate Universe, right?
A little bit, yeah.
So I had one of the volumes of Ultimate Captain America, and
Hmm.
he was fighting a villain that's very anti-American and brought up and tried to like break Captain America's patriotism and stuff. So he captured him and was basically making him watch and listen to lectures on all the atrocities that the U.S. has committed throughout its history since Steve went into the ice. Steve goes, "Yeah, I know all this stuff." See, the thing is, and then Captain America goes, what patriotism really is, it's not saying your country has done nothing wrong. What it is that you're loving the ideal of your country and saying that like it can do good stuff too while acknowledging the bad. And that's what they could do with Superman. The problem is that then you get like Rebirth Superman, which is like raw American. And I'm like, as much as I love my country, I can admit that some things take it a little too far.
Exactly. And with every issue or so, the American flag had to be somewhere. It just really showed, okay, they were going way too of the I don't even know if to call that a correction because of how, they wanted to show this is the real Superman, that he
Which
is.
is funny
And
because New 52 Clark never bashed America.
no, it was just the fact that he, dated
Uh,
technically, a foreign woman, and he also, went against the government.
which is
He,
hilarious because he did. Let's examine that, Britt. He dated a legal immigrant, legal, and he pointed out government corruption. It's about as American as you can get.
right, and he also punched a corrupt, I think it was a shadow demon anyway, but a cop. So,
Yeah, that I remember hearing about that, but I'm like, context, context,
right,
because of course someone's gonna upload that image to Twitter and go, he's punching a cop. Yeah, but it's a cop that's possessed by a shadow demon. So
yeah, so it was very the strikes against New 52 Superman was very
here's a
out
key
of
thing,
context.
though. Why did editorial let that slide? They could have said, can you not have it look like Clark is punching a cop?
Well, at that time, editorial was, I wouldn't say progressive, but within the world, like we said, New
Oh,
52
yeah,
Superman
you're
was
right
very
about that.
much, yeah, he was very much ingrained in the reality of the world. Rebirth Superman is basically in a reality of, again, America is great and it is like the only thing that mattered, and he's very much the poster boy for, you know, anything that doesn't align with the American way in a shallow way.
Exactly. I mean,
You
it's
know,
different than like because Anthony Mack, who's playing Captain America, recently made some statements that pissed some people off when he said that, like, someone asked him what Captain America means to him. He goes, Captain America represents a lot of things, but America should not be one of them. What he meant was that you can be, because he was talking in Germany, and what he meant was, is that you don't have to be an American to like Captain America, but it came off like he was saying Captain America should not represent America. It's different from that because Superman's name is not Captain America.
Right.
So there is that. But anyway, so then we get to the DC Comics 2010 vision. And so that's what they were trying to do. 2010 was like all about trying to modernize Superman in the good way, because modernizing can be bad, like when you attempt to modernize something and then it gets quote unquote woke. But in this case, it was more like, let's put them in a realistic world and show how they inspire it to be better. That's what Man of Steel does. That's what the new 52 does. And screw it, that's what Earth 1 does.
Right. And in regards to woke, the thing is that terminology has been twisted and rang, out like a rabbit.
Hence why I said quote unquote, because we're really, when people say woke, they really mean contrived. If you want to say a story point is like contrived, yeah, we can say that. I was just using that ironically, right. But it's like, but by modern, what I essentially meant, let me clarify that, is that a lot of writers, when they say they're updating something for the modern audience, they're trying to cram in modern politics into somewhere where it doesn't belong.
Right. But if we were to really, use that word in the way it's supposed to be, these characters as social justice warriors, they were that in the 30s. And being woke mean basically you're very aware of certain things within the world, certain things just that knowledgeable. That's what that really means. So for people to say that this is woke, it's really used in the most shallowest way, and it's not used the correct way. So yeah, these characters are woke in the sense of the social justice warriors that they're supposed to be. They are supposed to challenge the status quo. They're supposed to challenge the corrupt. They're supposed to challenge the ways that and fight against oppression. Yeah. That is what that is supposed to be. So for the 2010s,
Britt, on the back of the Superman Golden Age trade, it says "Champion of the Oppressed."
Right.
like it literally says it right there.
Right. You definitely have to show that more often. But yeah, so with the 2010s, Superman, he was losing appeal since the 80s. Ironically, that is the post-crisis reboot. And with him being this all-American, and again, trying to make him this Peter Parker in a shallow way. And it just didn't resonate. So then he kicks the bucket with Doomsday, and that didn't work. He marries Lois again. They wanted
that very much didn't work.
Yeah, so the early 2000s, Superman was just there. So then you get the Nolanverse, and that movie making over $1 billion, a very successful franchise for them. And it's not so much as turning DC dark or turning everyone into Batman. It's just more of, if we have these characters in a realistic world, but yet they give us this light, maybe they will resonate and be rejuvenated. That is what basically the thesis, I would say, what the 2010s were for Superman.
Yeah, and that's what it is.
That it did resonate. Again, because the world was becoming what it was, a little bit darker and everything like that. With having these inspirational characters go through a journey, we were able to invest. We were able to connect with them, resonate. And then we see them become the, well, not so much as post-crisis spoon-fed, but he's still that, and not so much as the dad, the boring dad figure either. He was just still that light in Wonder Woman 2.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, but we have where DC gets cold feet and they backpedal.
No. DC backpedals on good ideas? There's no way they would ever do that.
Right.
Exactly. And that's almost like saying that they would put someone that hates Superman and Wonder Woman on the Superman and Wonder Woman book. There's no way that would happen. So so I feel like so actually what's interesting, Britt, you bring up like trying to turn characters into Batman. I think that, see, the thing about it, one of the reasons why Batman is like as popular as he is, beyond the fact that DC like pumps him out in literally everything, is the idea of the struggle that he goes through. Where like, yeah, he doesn't have any powers, but he still fights through stuff. That's part of why the Nolan movies were so good. Like where, why do we fall, Bruce? So we can learn to pick ourselves up. That's what I think DC was trying to do with like Superman, Wonder Woman, all the characters. Yes, that involves putting them in some dark situations, but once they rise above that, because the difference between putting Superman and Wonder Woman, for instance, through those scenarios and Bruce, is Superman and Wonder Woman are always going to show up on the other side happier and like brighter. Batman's gonna stay depressed because that's how people sell it. That's why Wonder Bat's not gonna work, because even if we believe that Diana could make Bruce like more happy and more outspoken, DC's never gonna do that, because the minute you make Bruce happy, you lose who Batman is.
Exactly. And the whole thing, the shallow thing of Diana is supposed to play his therapist and nurse, that really misogynistic and sexist. And then you have where she's supposed to clean up Gotham too. So it's like, why is Diana taking on Bruce's burdens? That, what does she get out of that? So yeah, no, that does not work. She has her own journey, and we even see that in Kingdom Come, where again they are put in a very dark world of, everything is violent, and it's the answer to the 90s, which, thank you, Death of Superman, for, everyone was killing all these characters for a gimmick, and it became too much where all it was violence. So we have Kingdom Come that shows the pretty much the long-term effect of that, and how these characters have to move away and go back to how they were. It's not going back to being stagnant or conservative. It's just the fact that they aren't supposed to be driven to violence. They're supposed to, again, inspire, but at the same time learn from these mistakes and learn from these hardships and everything. And then
because everyone makes mistakes when you
right.
when you write, again, to quote that line from Nolan's Batman trilogy, why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves. And that's where we get to like even the influence of superhero movies, because not only that, so not only Nolan, but you also have Marvel's Iron Man and Hulk, where like these heroes make mistakes. Tony Stark makes a lot of mistakes, and arguably the entire plot of Iron Man 1 is him trying to make up for the mistakes that he made. Batman makes a lot of mistakes, and Man of Steel, yeah, he kind of does make a few mistakes, but the thing about it with superheroes is that, yeah, they're supposed to make mistakes so that they can learn from it, because because one of the criticisms of Superman, why so many people, myself included, didn't see him as like anything other than a dweeb, is because the perception, at least the public perception, is Superman is the perfect guy, the big blue Boy Scout who doesn't make mistakes. And to a degree, I get why some people like that, a hero that just does everything right. But that can get old real fast, because You want to talk about Superman and Wonder Woman being together, not having stakes? Superman never making a mistake. Guess what that leads to, Britt?
What is it?
Leads to no stakes. I'm like, come on, people. See, again, Britt, this is just DC fans being hypocrites because it's like you want Superman to be perfect and not make mistakes, but then you say Superman and Wonder Woman has no stakes. I'm like, make this make sense because you're trying to square to square a round hole here, if that's the proper terminology.
Yeah, I got what you meant. And yeah, they are. It's always fans will have double standards. Well, like you said, with saving Lois, it's very much predictable. The most unpredictable thing they could have is if Lois kicks the bucket. But we know that Superman stories end up, being that generic happy ending. But we want something, again, for this character to really be invested in and give us that why we should care. We need more stories that have him in a challenge that is just not easy to overcome. And yeah, if it takes 12 issues, if it takes 20 issues, as long as it's not dragging, too far and having fillers.
Tom King.
Yeah. And each issue tells like a certain point that's really something important, then yeah, take the 20 issues. But if it's something, yeah, like Tom King, that is very just padded and stuff like that, no, we don't want it. And
Exactly.
we aren't going to be invested in it.
I would respect it if DC announced that they're going to kill Lois, even if they bring her back later. Just do it so that people won't know what happens. Because again, I tell the story all the time, but I was reading the first volume of War World, and I'm checking it. Lois is in danger. Legit out loud, I said, he's going to save her. Why do I care about this? It ultimately, it just gets old, or they'll find some contrived way to do it. But anyway, so then you get to like the way the way that Superman was like perceived. Again, this is me because for the longest time before I read the character, before I saw Man of Steel, yeah, I saw him as like, okay, so everything goes right for him. He's invulnerable. Nothing can hurt him. Until like I read like New 52 Clark, Man of Steel and stuff. And I'm like, okay, because what you have to do, and then this is what I told people when I went really hard into the Snyder content creation, which I'm still doing. But it's like, it's one of those things where I told them, yeah, when you blast this stuff as, that's not Superman, what you're forgetting is that could be someone's gateway into liking Superman. Because take me, for instance. When I saw Man of Steel, ZSJL, BVS, and when I read New 52 Clark, guess what I did? I went back and I read back issues of the characters. Like a bunch of this, yeah, New 52 is fairly extensively in there, but there's plenty of like post-crisis or golden freaking age. So that's what this leads to. A lot of these versions of the character that you may not like Earth 1, like New 52, like Zack Snyder's Superman, become someone else's gateway into the character, then guess what that leads to? The more people pick up comics. If more people pick up comics, DC itself gets healthier.
Exactly. Now, however, it does go back, the ball goes back into DC's court because, yeah, we see New 52, we see Earth 1 or the movies, and we want to read something similar to that. But if DC just gives us like Rebirth Superman, that's basically telling you, oh, those iterations that brought you into the comics and stuff, that's all wrong. And Superman is just supposed to be this boring dad, preachy type character with the underwear and things like that. That is where the investment pretty much falls. So you know,
True, but my point is, like, then you even look into more like back issues, because that's the thing. If the current comics are bad, the best part about this company being 70 years old, or like this character being like 80, almost 100 years old, you can go back and read 80 years worth of comics and find stuff that's good.
exactly. And honestly, that is pretty much where majority of DC fans are now, reading back
Majority of
issues.
comic book fans are buying a lot of back issues, because here's the thing,
Right.
again, even on Marvel side, yeah, a lot of this stuff is not good, but it's like, that's the advantage. That's why whenever anyone says, oh yeah, DC comics are all bad, I'm like, first off, you're not looking at all the other stuff, because Green Lantern's good, Aquaman I've heard is good, but the thing is, you also have I'm pretty sure over the course of 80 years, DC has published at least one good story. I'm fairly certain there's been one good Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Green Lantern, what have you story that you will love. And that's part of why this channel exists, so that I can take people that may think that like DC is all horrible, they're all woke and stuff, and like, and however you want to blast DC. Okay, go read the 80 years worth of material, because I guarantee you'll find a version of the character you like. I don't even care if it's Rebirth Superman, honestly. If you enjoy that and you're reading Superman, I may not like that version of the character, but because you're reading comics and DC is healthier and has more readership, I'm fine with that.
Right. Right. As long as you're not trying to tell other fans that, or creators
Well,
are telling
obviously, as
fans.
long as you're not toxic. But if you're just
Right, right.
if you're just hanging out and saying, "Hey, I just happen to like this version of Superman," like I had some in the comments saying that they like Rebirth Superman, and I was like, "Okay, fair enough. I don't like it, but you know what? As long as you're being civil and saying, okay, it didn't resonate with me, but I'm glad it did with you. That's totally fine." Britt and I have said this many times on the show, even in the Wonder Woman campaign. We tell people, hey, if you like Tom King's Wonder Woman run, more power to you. That's fine. We don't like it. As long as you're civil with us, that's totally fine. We don't care.
Exactly. It's just a do not say, well, you should accept it or like it.
Or you're not a fan if you don't like Rebirth Superman, or if you like Zack Snyder's take on Superman. I'm like, I'm gonna take Jim Lee's advice. If you like anything that has the DC logo on it, you're a DC fan. Moving on. Now we're going to compare. I mean, we've been doing this a lot throughout the entire show, but we're going to compare Superman Earth 1 and New 52, because you are right, Britt. I mean, it's kind of funny when I was putting together the notes for this and I saw this section, I was like, you know what? She does have a point, because they are very similar. Like, for instance, in Superman Earth 1, he's the reluctant hero. He doesn't know. And actually, here's the thing. Earth 1 Superman is kind of the Henry Cavill Superman, but in comic book form, and you go through all this stuff. Slow
Exactly.
process growth. He's at first alienated from humanity. He's unsure of his place in the world. And I'm like, no wonder I like this book so much.
Exactly. Each of the 2010s Superman iterations have very similar, you know, elements within them. Of course, they do have differences too, but they all have this sense of isolation, this and feeling alienated. I wouldn't say that New 52 was reluctant. He was just, at times, he would question himself just a little bit, especially with what the government did to him. However, he still, you know, kept going. And then with Earth One Superman, he was young. He wasn't attached to Lois, just like New 52. Even though they tried within the beginning of New 52, he still was single and young. Then
Mm-hmm.
you have, I think her name was Lisa. That was Clark.
Yes, which I liked her in this book, honestly.
Yeah, it was Lisa, and then of course New 52 had Diana. So there's similarities and differences, but they all align in some type of way.
Yeah, and again, it's really cool because that's another thing I liked about Earth One. It did something new. It didn't put us with Lois, and at no point, in fact, anything. He ends up with Lisa at the end. And it's like she. There's this great scene in part three. So he's fighting Zod, and she and he's getting his ass kicked by Zod. But Lisa gets into a truck because all she sees is like her friend and the guy she loves is in danger and getting his ass kicked and possibly could get killed. So she runs a truck. So she just drives a truck right into Zod and like knocks him into a building. She gets really like messed up in the hospital, but she risked her life for Clark. And what's kind of cool about and what's kind of sweet, Britt, you'll love this. So when she's in the hospital, Clark obviously comes to see her, and this is when he kind of finds out that she knows he's Superman. And the last thing she says before she passes out is "I love you."
Aw,
And so
sweet.
and what's kind of cool about this, so she's an escort, and
Yeah.
she gets hit by like a client. So Superman breaks down this guy's wall and goes, "Okay, if I ever see you near her again, they won't ever find you." Basically, is what he says, and then he just leaves. Obviously Clark's not gonna like kill him, but still, I'm like, okay, I dig that a lot. That's very new 52 Clark of him to do that, and that's
And
very Shelterverse of him to do that.
that was a hint, I feel like.
That's well. Here's the thing, Britt. When you send chapter 3, and I got to that scene, I'm like, yep, exactly. And that is a hint of stuff that's coming. But my point is, that's where I get those ideas because, yes, Clark is like a positive guy. If you threaten someone close to him, oh.
Yeah. We love a Clark that will actually, you know, he's very tough. He's not going to become a killer or anything like that. However, he will rough you up. He should always at certain times, yeah, you can talk stuff out, but
Even if
then there are
Superman
times,
does not intend on going through it, he will stand up for people.
right? But at times, I would like to see Superman throw hands a little bit more. I don't care. It just
He doesn't have to punch someone's head off or punch a hole in someone's chest, but
no,
he can like rough someone up and go, "Okay, are we done?" Or like, remember what he did with Apollo because he talked about Diana very disparagingly. He threw
right,
him through a volcano.
right. He won't throw a mortal,
No.
anything like that. He wouldn't do that. However, maybe a very obviously, holding back a lot of power, but he can punch a guy. I just want to see something like that at some point because it just feels like I said, talking is fine, but to show Superman with more of a backbone, because so
Because that's partly why people see him as lame. Because yeah, you're gonna threaten me, but you're not gonna do anything.
yeah, and trying to be friendly with everyone. He's friendly, but not that friendly. He's not a doormat, and we just need more of that shown that he's not a doormat.
Well, speaking of not being a doormat, remember in the first issue of Grant Morrison's Action Comics where he's holding the corrupt guy over the building?
Yes.
I'm like, oh, good lord, you're really establishing that this guy's different in a good way, because that's what Action Comics would do. Literally, in like Action Comics 1, he grabs a dude and is running across telephone poles with the guy on his shoulder.
Yeah. I mean, New 52 Superman, even in the G's and T, that really set a standard of, oh, DC is very serious about this reboot and very serious of um, being different, but also taking Superman back to his roots, his golden age roots. Having him in jeans and T was very modernized, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, he still had that power level of golden age and the attitude of golden age. And we see how that with modernization, but it fits perfectly with the world of today. And even now, we need a Superman like that. That's pretty much why we have the absolute universe. But I feel like just a little bit right now, they are still safe zoning it. You know, we're only
Mm,
4 issues in, but for right now, Aaron is spending a lot of time, building Krypton, which is good because I love Laura. I love absolute Laura. She's very much
yeah.
like
When
New
she shows
52.
up with the giant gun, I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And dealing with, the oppressed and everything like that. I love that. However, it still feels like, with comparing New 52, right at
Mhm.
the gate, they were kind of like, we're going to force, this we're going to stand out, you know. But with Absolute again, it feels like the only standout at first was Batman, and of course, with Snyder, he wants to be,
Batman be I mean the Batman who lifts.
yeah, he basically wanted him to be, this big. I would say that Snyder turned into a 14-year-old boy.
I mean,
He,
look at how big Batman is in this cover, Britt.
yeah, he basically wants him to be Bane, in a sense, very jacked up and everything. So that really stood out. Superman, him having the shaggy hair, love the design and everything. But again, it just feels like it's something that needs to stand out a little bit more like New 52.
And then we all know which one stood out the most. What besides Batman was Wonder Woman, where she looks like Kratos, doesn't act like Kratos. That's my point about that. When people say like it's just so they turn Wonder Woman to Kratos, I'm like they did see where you'd get that like opinion. But anyway, so with this one, it's like again you have to like see Superman's like identity because. But here's the other thing when you look at Superman in the new 52, it depends on the book you're looking at. Because when you read like Superman Wonder Woman by Sewell, he acts like regular Superman, obviously with a little bit of an edge with the new 52, but he doesn't brood that much in that book particularly.
No, I would say that honestly, New 52 Superman wasn't a brooder. I wouldn't say he was very relaxed, laid
Well,
back
that's
type.
true. And we all know how DC fans, particularly Superman fans, tend to like overemphasize brooding. But my point being is like he acted a lot like regular Superman, particularly when you get to like other books like Superman Wonder Woman.
Right. Like I said, he was very laid back, and if he just wasn't a pushover. And I think a lot of Superman fans don't want to admit it, but yes, they do prefer Clark being a little pushover. And you can't, he can be nice, he can be kind, humble, but again, that doesn't mean being a doormat. And that
Exactly.
is where Superman fans kind of get that mixed up.
Exactly. And that's why I like this version of Superman. If there's anything that new 52 Superman was not, it was the doormat. And then you get to Clark Kent, where the Clark Kent in this, again, he's unsure of his world. He's a drifter. Again, just like Man of Steel. It's astounding how similar these things are, which it could be intentional, but you know what? I'll take it. But it's like, so he becomes a reporter, but it's more like, it's kind of like so I can go places that Superman needs to be, and no one's gonna question why is Clark Kent here. So I'm like, oh, okay. I also liked Earth One emphasized how intelligent Superman is, like where he shows up at that biolab and he corrects their work and he goes, okay, so I just did your job for you. After they tell him we hire people from like Yale and Harvard. He goes, yeah, I just completed I just essentially did your job for you. So I really like to our point about Clark being a journalist. I mean, scientist when they factor in how intelligent Superman is, because I don't think that gets emphasized in the comics enough. Clark is actually a genius.
Exactly. With traveling the world and stuff like that, it all can come together. You don't have to choose one or the other. You don't have to um, take away from one or whatever, that it's just blending it and balancing it all out.
Yeah, exactly. And again, balance. You could have people on either side. You could have writers on either side that take it way too far in like one side or the other. But if you have a balance, which I think Earth One did, I'd say DCEU did, and I'd say New 52 did, you can definitely have that. Then we even get to New 52 Clark, our boy. And yes, I picked an image from Superman Wonder Woman, where he's a little bit more assertive. He's not a big galoot, which I'm happy for because that's freaking stupid. And I like how like he formed an independent news agency. He would later go back to the Daily Planet, but still, I like that, like, sort of, because they've never really done that. And to our point, like you've said on many episodes, people go to independent news source. Less people are going to like CNN and like Fox News for like news than like independent news agencies now, or even on the comic book and entertainment side. Most people go to like content creators like us for information on this.
Right. And first of all, that image is so like you pick the best image because it gives him that, like you said,
Swagger.
He's not, swagger, but he's also, if you want to say that New 52 Superman was aggressive or he was broody or something, and then you show this image, it's kind of like he is so like sweet and have like this laid back attitude, and he has just a very unique flower in his hand. That is something, again, it's about the balance of that type of thing. He did have a normal type life. It's just something that is very extraordinary, and Grant Morrison said it themselves that Superman does, do ordinary things. It's just on a Paul Bunyan level. He walks his dog, but he can go out in space and walk his dog. He goes to visit his family members, but at the same time, it will be 1,000 years, like the Legion or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Just things like that makes these characters unique, makes these characters fun, and it doesn't have to be just this shallow view of them.
Yeah, exactly. But again, DC not being shallow, gasp. Don't tell me. But I love the line. Diana turns around. He's just standing there with the flower. He just goes, "Hi." That's all he says. He's like, "Oh, hey there." He doesn't say anything smooth. I like where he goes. It's like unique and it's beautiful. I thought of you. And I love Diana's response. If I wanted smooth, I'd be with Hal Jordan.
Yeah, because it was, it's cute, but it was kind of like
corny, but that's like you can weigh in with that with Clark. And I like how he goes, "Okay, I'm going to show you a little bit of my culture." And she wants to train him for battle. She's like holding the sword at him, and he's like, should I be interested? Should I take off my shirt, or what should I do here?
Yeah, that is something that is so fun. It's unique. It's something, again, these characters, they don't supposed to just live like this normal everyday life. That's not who they are. It is about embracing uniqueness. And if you do have some normalcy, it is going to have some craziness that goes along with it. And as as creatives, that just should be embraced.
Exactly. But then again, a lot of creators are lazy. So then we get to the relationships of these two. So Earth One, he kind of had a love life with like Lisa, but what I liked about Lisa is that she started off as his best friend, who was like a neighbor, and they became like friends and stuff. Lois just stayed as like a friend. All right, I love Jimmy's hair. That is so early 2000s.
It
like
is.
the overly gelled hair. I'm like,
Yeah.
I did that haircut back in the day, but I like the neighbor, and you know it's kind of interesting. He brings her to Smallville, and then even like his mom is like, oh, I love her, she's nice. Then we have where in the New 52, Lois is more of like a friend, or like I think like there was a scene where like Clark was gonna ask her out, but Lois was with someone at the time, so he just left, and then he's listening with his super hearing to Lois telling her boyfriend that she sees Clark as like just a friend. Then you get to Superman Wonder Woman, where arguably it helped the character, but the fans threw a fit, and there you go.
I like how you sort of like dwindled down with that.
Yeah,
It's like,
because I'm still like, you had the potential. To quote Star Wars, we were on the verge of greatness. It dwindled. Well, it didn't really dwindle down. It was just the fans that don't support the books.
right. That is a $1 million question of why would a company like take heed to to fans that do not support the books,
Yeah,
and
that's
they
the
pretty much
thing.
show.
That's the thing. And Britt and I were talking about this before we started recording. We're like, what? Because some fans want Wonder Woman to be with like a woman or like with Cheetah and stuff. And I'm like, okay, you can say you interpret the character that way, and that's valid. That's fine. But for DC to actually acknowledge it, you have to give like a actual monetary reason why that would benefit the character. Like you have to say, how would DC profit more from this happen? Because DC is not a charity, it's a business, as we say many times. The problem is what a lot of like fans want would lead to, or what some fans want. I don't even think it's like a lot with this, or with like Clark being with Lois, or like with the whole Diana dating girl, that it would either lead to like stagnation in terms of Clois, or monetary hits.
Exactly.
By hit, I mean decrease in money.
Right. And I mean, if you DC obviously knows that New 52 outsold Rebirth. So it's kind of like pacified these fans that, you know, whined and stuff like that, but they didn't put their money where their mouth is. And you gave them what they wanted, and it hurt you financially. And now you're in that same spot of what made you want to reboot in the first place. What type of business are you running?
Who said they're running a business?
Well, yeah, touche.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
That's true.
But basically, at least with both, that when they're not with Lois, they seem to be happier. Isn't that kind of funny how that works? All right. So, Britt, time to take the Band-Aid off. Earth 1 Wonder Woman.
Ooh, Lord.
So
you can definitely handle this one because
thanks. Thanks. So, all right, here's the problem with this book. This is like those people saying they want to homage Marston, but forgetting the context around what Marston did, because this is actually a fantastic image. For example, this book features a lot on the bondage side of Wonder Woman, and even I'm like, this kind of took it and overemphasized it even more than like what Marston did, or like a lot of this book. Like, see, I want to like this book so much because, as we see, there are good stuff. Like the art is spectacular, but I'm just like, So by Grant Morrison with art by Yannick Paquette, and it's the art by Paquette is awesome. Like, fan-freaking-tastic. I also like how, like, in the very beginning, where it's showing, like, Hippolyta versus Hercules, it's showing it, and, like, the borders are, like, Greek pottery, like, it's being told, like, a story. But, see, the thing about this is, all right, so here's the thing. Morrison was trying to, like, bring back a lot of, like, what Marston had in, like, the Golden Age Wonder Woman, but he did it in a way that was both very problematic. And we'll get to there are a couple of things in this that, what's kind of funny. Here's why I originally liked this. So I reread this, and there's like a particular part involving Steve Trevor that and Britt knows exactly what I'm referencing, that when I read it today, I was like, yeah, I could see why Britt would hate this, because literally I sent Britt like the links to read these, and she literally responded in the group chat we have with Jid, I freaking hate this book. And I'm like, as soon as you said all that stuff, I'm like, oh yeah. And it's like, I get what they're doing, but like this book has an overemphasis on like submission, and I'm like, particularly when they also bring in Dr. Psycho and have him almost R-word Diana.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell? And Lord knows that one panel of Diana with Artemis that keeps being used for no explicit reason beyond the fact. Here's why they only use that, Britt. You ready? Because it's the only panel where that happens.
Yeah. And it's taken out of context, and the context is just
context awful. Makes it very bad, to the point where I'm like, Grant, why did you do this? But we'll get to that. But it's like, even with like the Themyscarans are like culty. Hippolyta is a little bit like, what? To the point where like when Diana runs away or something like that, before Hippolyta even knows Steve is on the island, she goes, there's only one reason why things are acting weird. There's a man on the island. I'm like, there could be any other reason why stuff may be acting weird, Hippolyta. And I'm like, see, that's the thing. This is when it gets woke, Britt, by the negative version of woke, when the man bashing gets crazy to the point where at the end of this book, women literally take over the world. Hence why this cannot be in the same continuity as like Superman Earth 1 or Green Lantern or Batman.
And the thing is, yeah, Hippolyta gave very much mommy dearest type energy.
Mm-hmm.
The whole Diana being rebellious type thing, I can't stand that.
I hate that.
Their relationship as mother and daughter is supposed to be something positive.
This is the Wonder Woman you would think would punch her mother in the face, Tom King.
Exactly. Honestly, with Tom King saying that Perez was the definitive version that he read, I get the feeling that he actually read.
I'm thinking he only read this because it was only 3 graphic novels. That's what I'm thinking.
Honestly, I don't even think he read. I think he just saw like a couple of pages and was like, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
I swear, if he has Diana take out a collar when Steve Trevor comes back to life, I'm going to go, oh, so you only read Earth 1, you perv.
Well, honestly, no, it's if Steve comes back as black. Maybe.
Oh, so he would have Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane him.
Yeah.
I'm never letting that go. But it's like with this, I'm like, see, here's the thing. It's like Morrison rarely paints the Amazons as wrong. And that's the thing. It'd be one thing if like they started off as like man hating and then slowly they like got a little bit more like, not like man loving, but a little more congenial. They never do that. And I'm like, again, that's when it gets the negative woke, where it's like, okay, so essentially you're portraying all Amazons as man-hating, and women are the only ones that are competent in this story, except, of course, if you're Beth Candy. We'll get to that, but this was the most insulting version of Etta Candy I have ever seen, Britt.
Right, and honestly, the whole, if you want to make it seem like the Amazons are misandrist or something like that, this is the book that does it.
Yeah, exactly. And which I hope when they do a Wonder Woman movie, let's be honest, if James Gunn points to this, I'm gonna be very concerned, because it's like then you get stuff like this where it's like the power dynamic with this is really weird. And it's like, even with like Again, the scene where Dr. Psycho hypnotizes Diana and then starts kissing her. I'm like, I
Too
don't know
much.
how I should feel about this.
Right. And again, with these types of, complex topics, of abuse and stuff, but the art, it kind of like it sexualized it even more so than, the topic at hand. And it really just takes you out of the, like I said, how it's supposed to be important. And it really makes you uncomfortable. And while, yes, reading these characters with certain topics, you are supposed to be uncomfortable in the way that makes you question, certain things and make you think. But this is uncomfortable in a sense of, no, this is done very, very wrong.
I'm like, and again, here's a good thing about this. I like the panel borders in this because again, it's like Greek pottery where like all the Greek history was shown. Even
Right.
though Grant Morrison kind of establishes that the Amazonians are not Greek, so I'm like, then why are
So
you
why
using
even?
yeah, why are you using a bunch of Greek imagery?
Oh my gosh.
I'm
You
like,
know,
wait a minute here.
if I would have to say is that Earth One is edging out Amazon Attack just a little bit.
Oh my god. I never thought I would hear that.
Because it's just like I said, the over sexualization, the the way Morrison takes Marston's, it very ambitious, very, I get what they are trying to do with he did it he they did it with Action Comics, New 52, took Superman back to his golden golden age self.
Mm-hmm.
However, with Marston, what they took from that was not something that should have, been taken from, because it is controversial, and that's pretty much what has uh, been a stumbling block for Wonder Woman, is that so many people think that she is just this hyper sexualized character, that she can't, represent feminism. She can't represent equality and respect because of her her bodysuit, or the thing of being from an island of women. And then when you have writers who take this and again sexualize it, or they make jokes about it, or
Or it's
and
like when the Amazons are having a festival and they're like pouring wine on each other.
yeah,
And I'm
stuff
like,
like that.
ah.
That is why Wonder Woman has such a hard time, and why so many writers just want to self-insert either with the with another female character, or with especially a male character, and it's not something that Wonder Woman needs, you know.
Exactly. So
It's-
let's talk about the good. Yeah, the art is awesome. Yannick Paquette draws the crap out of this book. Particularly like a lot of the details of like that mascara, the Amazon's technology, like the invisible jet, the purple healing ray. That's really cool. Then you get to like with again that's the thing about the way this book was. It's supposed to like try to like homage Marston. Try, operative word is try, and how it portrays that mascara. But again, it's like this is one of those occasions where a book with good art has writing.
exactly.
That's what I'm just going to tell you. By the way, it also is kind of like a mind f. Hippolyta is reborn as a baby. This is where I got my original theory that Trinity was that they were going to retcon Trinity to be just Hippolyta, but they can't do that because Josie Campbell is writing Shazam, and Hippolyta is one of the gods that gives like Mary Marvel her powers.
You know what? Again, this definitely feels like King probably read only Earth One.
Mm-hmm. Because if he says he read Perez, I'm like, okay, where is it? Because you have it with Steve Trevor, and that was definitely not in Perez.
None of whatever Tom King is referencing or whatever is Perez. So no, it has to be Earth One at least something like that. Not even Rucka or Gale. No, it has to be this.
Yeah, it's strange and really weird. So then we get to the ugly. Okay, so here's what I want to talk about. Okay, so they race Ben Steve, and I'm like, okay, fine. It's another version of the character. So you put the black version of Steve in bondage?
Right. So
What?
the so the reason why Morrison wanted Steve to be black, they said that the Caucasian version is boring,
Well, any
white
version
bread.
of Steve is boring, so
True.
there's that.
So they thought that making him black would be interesting. However, race bending him doesn't make him interesting.
And then you
And
compound it by putting him in by putting the black
exactly.
version of Steve in bondage. No
Yeah,
one told him maybe this is a bad look.
right. And Morrison has the tendency to write female characters in very controversial ways. We have Talia, even Lois in
Well,
All
remember
Star
Talia.
Superman,
Their reasoning for writing her that way is because they forgot.
which that
And
is
I'm like,
a
guess what you could do? Read the book. Go
exactly,
back.
exactly. It that was I feel like that was definitely something that again you are trying to go with controversy and it backfired. So you want to make an even dumber reason of why you did it. So, and
So
it just doesn't work.
it definitely doesn't work. So then you get to Beth Candy, which is the Etta Candy of this book. She is literally a fat joke. Like she is driving when we her and her sorority are driving to like deliver food to like a homeless shelter or something like that. Then it's revealed that she got hungry and ate some of the food that was supposed to go to the homeless shelter. And I'm like, what? So you literally, it's kind of funny when Comic Pop was reviewing this book. Literally, this is what they said. They put Rebel Wilson in this book.
Yeah. And you also have Diana where she, says some um very
Fat
offhanded
phobic stuff.
things.
What have
Yeah.
you done to your body? Or like when Mala shows up to like save Diana, she goes, "Oh, look at the women here. They're very bloated." I'm like,
Yeah, that the shaming is totally off base to who Diana is as a character and what she represents. All women are Wonder Women, no matter your skin color, no matter your age, no matter your orientation, you know, or no matter your size. So again, for Morrison to take these certain elements that are supposed to be inspirational and turn them into something so ugly is it really doesn't make any sense.
speaking of that doesn't make any sense. Then we get to the panel seen around the world. All right. So whenever anyone tries to ship Diana with Artemis, they use this panel. Okay, so here's the problem. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna grab the book from my shelf so I can actually read you the dialogue and why this is very cringe. Britt, introduce the concept to our fine viewers.
Okay, so this is Diana being the only child of the island, and they were doing a contest or some type of
No, so what
challenge,
this
right?
is the Amazons are rallying because they're about to be invaded by Ares, the god of war. So she's trying to rally the tribes, and apparently
Okay.
she needs the daughters of Sparta, essentially the Bana Megdal, to unite the island. So that's essentially what that is.
Okay, so the fight is that. Oh, I thought it was I told you I just skimmed through this because had to stop.
I had to read
Terrible.
it, Britt.
I'm sorry, Jerry. So, yeah, but either way, Artemis still it's still very much known that Diana was the only child of the island, which means that all the other Amazons are very much older than her and raised her to be as second mothers,
Oh,
aunts.
here we go. Here's the dialogue. It's in the top panel of the bottom page. All right. Artemis says, all right, perhaps another should be queen. My sweet Diana, to me, you'll always be a child. I was there when you were grown in your mother's alembics. We all took turns winding you. And then, so they battle. Then, okay. So Diana says, just wanted to make sure you're completely, you didn't go completely soft in man's world. You'll do. She kisses her, and then, okay. So the woman that's like being held on a leash, by the way, is a literal Nazi that tried to invade Themyscira. So they mind controlled her into being a good. So she goes, I'm the youngest of the Amazons, a convert to your creed, attending to your words. I'll add my own. One word above all else we can't forget. As she watches Artemis make out with essentially someone that she just said, I remember. I'm going to reread this for emphasis. To me, you'll always be a child. That word is love. And I'm like, that is getting to the Diana loves everyone. That right there is my issue with everyone saying Diana loves everyone. I'm like,
Yeah, you definitely have to emphasize on or when we say that of Diana loves everyone and all of that, it's kind of like you really have to choose your words carefully with that. Diana loves life. She does love love, but at the same time, common sense will tell you of what she would not accept.
or even on that, if you're a fan of Artemis, do you know what this dialogue makes her look like? I can't say this word on YouTube, but you know what I'm trying to say here.
Right, and especially when she says that Diana was growing.
Or to me, you'll always be a baby. Okay, this is again. Who was editing this book? Grant, I just have one question for you. Why?
I mean, whoever was supposed to edit.
You know what it probably is? I believe I read somewhere that Grant has a thing in his contract where he can't be edited.
Well, you know what? That's
BS then, because I'm like, this is the reason why you edit.
Yeah, that contract needs to be null and void because no, this
is what you get, because even Marston didn't go this far. You know what's bad? When Marston, the guy that was in a polyamorous relationship, has more standards. Right. I'm just going to tell you that. That's what that looks like.
Yeah, and again, I've said this panel needs to stop being used because in context, it's so bad. You know, I understand we're trying to what it's used for, but
this is the one time I say use fan art.
Yeah.
At least do that, because at least in that, it doesn't have this very, very, very problematic context.
Yes.
Like extreme. This is John Byrne level of problematic.
But a little bit worse. It's worse.
Kind of a little. I mean, is it worse though? I think it's on the same level of
it's on the same level. However, the fact that the dialogue pretty much cements it though.
But remember, the dialogue in that John Byrne moment has Superman acknowledged, but you're 14.
That's true. I mean, this is okay. So yeah, it is on the same level. Whether you say you're 14 or you were a
baby, we all took turns. Essentially, I think basically what they're saying, we all rocked you in your crib. This is why I'm
Yeah,
like, when Rucka is like, oh, she comes from an island of only women. Of course she'd be bi. Rucka, she's established to be the baby of the island. Do you realize what that's saying, dude?
yeah, or saying that she basically was with half the island. That no, that is weird, very
Yeah,
weird,
dude.
and uncalled for. Like, you can
Ignoring the
explore,
fact, I get that she refers to any woman as a sister, but they're all her aunts in that case. And again,
right?
they've known her since she was a baby
Exactly.
or a
That's what
clay
makes
baby.
it
Either origin, it doesn't work.
right. That's what makes it very unnecessarily uncalled for, very weird, and it's something that should not be explored in that sense, like ever,
Britt, do
unless
you see why I'm also very adamant that Wonder Woman is straight? Because when you try and do the wargaming through why she would be bi, you get into this territory.
right. If you want to explore Diana's bisexuality, I mean, yeah, man's world, that's fine. But on the island, no. Because
At
again,
least say what you want about Dark Knights of Steel. At least she was with someone not from the island that is, for the most part, as far as we know, her age.
what yeah, but the imagery is still
Imagery
Kara.
is still yeah, but at least that Diana at least was an alternate version and aged down. So that's why I'm like, I still think it's kind of cringe because I'm like, okay, why? It just seems so much like, okay, we can. It's an Elseworlds, just do it. But it's like, my point is, when you look at that, that's less like compared to this. That I'm like, okay, that's fine.
It's fine, but at the same time, I can't help but just see Kara, who is
Well,
16, and
yeah,
Diana's supposed to
that's
be like
true.
an aunt figure to her. So yeah,
That's
either
true.
way,
But compared to this, I'm
it's the
pretty sure
lesser
that's
of the
looking
two
pretty good
evils.
right now.
Is pretty much the lesser of the two evils. But like I said, if you want to explore Diana's bisexuality, is you have to do it like with someone her age, and
And
with
and
someone.
and that's not a murderous furry.
Yes, let's emphasize that too. That is not a murderous furry. I am no Barbara Minerva, never, because and she's also a cannibal too. Like
Yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah. What? That doesn't. Ask Army Hammer how that worked out. Yes, I went there.
no, just no. Why would you want? And the thing is, when some fans talk about shipping Diana with Minerva, it's always Diana, giving her like this redemption.
Diana
And
is not the night nurse.
yeah, she's not a nurse, she's not a therapist. Her love is not that. Yeah, she can help her with her redemption, but it doesn't have to necessarily mean something like that, especially when they've never had that type of relationship. It has always been Minerva very much jealous of Diana.
Well,
And
here's the other thing, Britt. Here's again, when you read volume 1 of Rebirth Wonder Woman, I swear the amount of second and third order BSery that comes from the second Rucker run, some of those like panels drawn by Liam Sharp of like Cheetah like nuzzling up to Diana from behind as it's like one of the covers. Yeah, that kind of doesn't help.
yeah, it definitely like it's not something of romantic thing though. It's very much the art trying to convey something in that twisted manner, but still it's very much hatred. And it's not a hatred out of love or romance or something. It is just strictly hatred. And you're sexualizing, just as this book is also doing. You are sexualizing these type of plot points, moments, or character moments, and is giving the wrong message.
Well, plus
And
not
it
only that, it's established in the comics lore. See, I read comics that that the cheetah spirit was originally like I don't want to say righteous, but it wasn't evil. Minerva corrupted the spirit.
right, and what Rucka basically tried to do was make fans sympathize with Minerva. And it's like, no, that's not her character. She is supposed to be basically kind of corrupted within herself. That is who the cheetah is. But to try to, I get with you wanting to explore abuse and being taken advantage of, um, the curse that it's something if Minerva was a good person. But again, it's about development. And Rucka didn't develop her as a good person, in the first place. So, I still don't see the investment in that. You can do a lot of mental gymnastics and try to, head canon it all. That's pretty much what the fans do. They reference Rucka and still take things out of context just to make their point. But again, when you know the characters and know, like you just mentioned, the curse wasn't, um, well, the cheetah spirit wasn't cursed, it was Minerva. Then, yeah, there's no way around it.
Yeah, Minerva is evil. So speaking of evil, absolute Lois Lane. I had to, but so we have the previews with this, and again, it's Superman on the run, but I'm like, so Lois is kind of harassing people, really?
Yeah, so, okay, so going back, to Earth One to wrap that up.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, never again will I attempt to read this. It was only for this episode, and that's it. Like I said, I didn't even finish it. I skimmed through it and read reviews, and that was it.
and
But
now I
never
know what
again.
I'm gonna send you at random times to screw with you.
No, never again, never again. Just like Amazon Tech, never again. Um,
Now I know what to reference at random points in episodes just to screw with you.
Lordy.
Trust me, Britt, as I've said before, never go to war with me, because once you expose a weakness, I will exploit it.
Well, yeah, those two stories, it irks me. No, I do not like those stories.
So I
Earth
take it, Britt, you enjoyed Earth One Superman more.
Earth One Superman, definitely, because again, with the character and what he's supposed to represent, it's definitely something that of all stories, except for Earth One Wonder Woman, yeah, that is on its own. However, Earth One Superman has potential, and yeah, could it have been, you know, executed a little bit better? Sure. All stories, that's what we say all the time. However, it was in the right place, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And with the 2010s again, that was something they wanted Superman to be in a more grounded, realistic world, and for him to go through the journey. And that is the Superman that we need of today. I have said that from the very beginning, and I continue to say it um, until we actually get that Superman back. Now, going to Absolute Superman,
Wait,
that
real quick, my turn.
okay.
The dialogue in that Steve Trevor part is so much worse. He literally tells Black Steve Trevor to submit to her loving authority.
See, stop. Just let's go.
Oh my god! I'm like, oh my god, this is so bad. All right, now Absolute Superman number 4. By the way, another Peacemaker gets his ass kicked. I don't even care that it's by Lois. As you can tell, I really hate Peacemaker.
Yeah. Um, it seems like Lois is very much a daddy's girl in this universe. I mean, she was in post-crisis, I would say. She basically longed for um Sam Lane's acceptance. So maybe within this verse they have a better relationship, of course, and she's still that daddy's girl. Obviously she inspired to be in the military and everything like that. Um, but again, with the shipping, okay, Lois is basically on the side of the oppressors. So I don't know if you would want this version of Clark to be within oppressor.
I mean,
Like,
so was Steve in the Tom King Wonder Woman run.
you know what? And we always call that out too. Steve in the military and everything like that is very much, that is the contradiction with them being love interests. And especially with Steve, he doesn't work in modern day, being with the military. And yeah, you can,
And not even being with the military, just being with a character that fights gods. What are you gonna do?
yeah, but those type of differences, that is something that really it can't just be glossed over. And the thing is, in issue 2, the solicitation for issue 2 of Wonder Woman was that they were supposed to have a conflict. But obviously, with Tom King's writing and everything, it was glossed over. And he basically showed how Diana is. He wants to say that Diana is a contradiction, with the warrior and the peace. But no, that contradiction comes from her being with Steve. Because again, Steve did nothing. He didn't help try to free her sisters. He didn't truly help with the Sovereign or Steel. He hasn't helped with anything. So
Or if he
and
has, well, he probably has. It's just Tom King is relying on his doing stuff off screen.
that, and also being, again, in the view of today, the military is just something that you don't want to glorify. Just like how we talk about the American way and with Rebirth Superman, that is something else that it just, if you aren't going to explore the bad with it and just glorify it, then like how Tom King did, with the latest issue of Wonder Woman, then no, that is something that is going to be uh is going to rub, fans the wrong way, which it did. So with you just glorifying Steve as being this military guy when Diana's sisters were imprisoned and unalived by his fellow comrades in the military, you know, why isn't that challenged? you know, yeah, you want to have this romance by default, but it's also something, at the expense of Diana's character. So with Absolute Superman, this is the same thing, that fans are so used to Lois and Clark being together, they are just already pushing them as, just, yeah, they know they are going to be together, regardless that Lois is on the side of the oppressors and that she is chasing after uh, Cal to arrest him, and she's
I do
not
like how Jason Aaron seems to be taking my advice of have Lois be the antagonist.
right, right. But
Hey,
yeah,
you lead to something new.
yeah, but the whole in enemies to lovers type thing, no,
I
that
really
is
hope it
not.
doesn't get to lovers.
The thing is that is so like a cop out, because this is supposed to be a new verse, challenge the characters. But again, this is what I meant by, it still feels like it wants to be safe. Like, yeah, they'll put them in different type of situations, but even with one Absolute Wonder Woman, Steve is the exact same. And that is something that Thompson had to address, to say that fans have called that out, that Steve is still just like Main versus Steve, of a blonde in the military. But she says, well, maybe he'll be different, in another arc. Or she said in issue 4, which came out and is like nothing changed. But you
So he'll
know,
be useful eventually?
yeah, but at the
I
same
mean,
time, it's
Britt, actually,
still
he did serve a purpose in issue 4. Let's not forget, he was a human blood bag.
Jared.
I'm just saying that he did serve a purpose.
I mean, something actually profound, that actually, oh, he is an interesting character, something like that.
I mean, you
But
can't
no,
do that with Steve because he's a profoundly uninteresting character. But
that's
as
true.
a blood bag, he's actually very useful.
That is funny. Yeah, so with that, other than that, the art is good,
Hmm?
and having Superman as the champion of the
Champion of the
oppressed.
oppressed. There you go, baby. There you
Yes,
go.
that is a great plot line.
Right there.
Yeah.
There you go. So speaking of Superman, cue the Curb Your Enthusiasm music. WB is getting sued. Now,
Okay.
I want to be clear on this. This has happened before with like Man of Steel. Here's the difference. With Man of Steel, it was about the Siegels and the Schusters having the rights to Superman, which Warner Bros. Has the rights. What this one is about, and it's only the estate of Joseph Shuster. What this is about is apparently there's like a law in the territories formerly held by England. I think that's the way this works, where the estate 20 years after the creator's death, the estate retains the rights essentially of the character stuff. Now, here's the interesting thing about this, Britt. Here's why DC has to do this. Ignoring Superman the movie, this applies to Superman, period. So if this goes through and it sides with the Schusters, unless the Schusters say so, Superman can't be distributed in Canada, UK, Ireland, or Australia. Anything Superman.
And that
And
would,
he can't show up in any movies, period.
yeah, and that would essentially kill the character. Um, so I think that WB will, obviously with politics and stuff like that, they'll win the lawsuit. Is unless it's something that's very a plot twist in
Mm-hmm.
this type thing.
Which it is
But
WB, so.
yeah, so I think that and like you said, they had a lawsuit before. Yes, it was in something different, but it's still they've done lawsuits before and they won. So it's just something that comes up. DC as a whole, DCU, for Gunn,
More
it's
controversy for this.
yeah,
By the
it's a lot.
way, I'm going to play this real quick.
Yeah, it's like at Warner Brothers.
It's controversy,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean the verse is very cheap
Mm-hmm.
anyway. So I mean, it's whatever to me. I've let it be known that I really don't care much. It's not something that's really just something that stands out. It's very safe feeling. And right now, and Gunn he was obligated to do a Superman movie first, but if he really had his choice, he would definitely have the DCU just with
Suicide
C-listers.
Suicide Squad 2
Exactly. It would definitely be a bunch of Suicide Squads
or
rehashes.
A Peacemaker film.
Right. So, and again, it's out of obligation to have Superman. Batman, of course, it was obvious that he would have Batman because Batman is DC moneymaker. Wonder
Not if
Woman,
this movie flops.
true. Wonder Woman is you had regardless, and I'll keep saying this, regardless of 1984 being a controversial movie and very misguided. It's still the fact that it made profit and Wonder Woman's popularity skyrocketed and remained consistent with popularity. And with James Gunn making the decision to basically like sideline her, and make the mascara the joke of creature commandos, I
Mm-hmm.
really don't have any type of faith within this verse, and I don't know how he's going to handle her as, as
I'm very
the,
concerned.
yeah, as the premier DC's top, female character. Um, to degrade her and to sideline her it's very telling. So yeah, I don't know what will happen. Of course, he could announce something tomorrow, but until then, whenever he announces it, I'm very skeptical.
Well, even after he announces it, if he's involved in some way, I'm like,
Yeah,
watch
that too.
the next movie he announces is a Wonder Woman movie directed by him, and I'm like, oh no, that's going to be the first time I'm going to seriously consider not seeing a Wonder Woman movie.
Yeah, written by Tom King.
Uh,
Wow.
well, why do you have to? Was this
I'm
payback
sorry.
for me going back to the Earth One panel, Britt?
I'm sorry.
Uh, watch as I die from cringe. Oh my god. Hashtag King off Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Earth One is okay. What Earth One Superman, pretty good. By the way, how would you rate Earth One Superman out of 10?
Honestly, at 8.5.
Oh, okay, I can get that. How about Wonder Woman?
0 out of 10. Would not recommend.
I would, yeah, 0 out of 10. I mean, the art is pretty good though.
0.1 then.
0.1. That's all it get. That's all it pumps it up. It's like a 0.1. That's good. I love that. Never change, Britt. Never change. But I think that's a good place to leave it. This was a very interesting one. Next week we'll be actually portraying a lot of African American superheroes and what's known as the Trill League. Trust
Yes.
me. When Britt explained this to me last week, it was a mind blown moment.
We're going to have so much fun with the Trill League and just giving celebration to these very profound African American characters that honestly DC
Should do more with.
yes, and neglecting that should be prominent, in general.
So, Britt, how about any stories you want to tease us with? Because you
Oh,
finally showed me chapter 3, and if I may say, it's pretty good.
thank you. So that whole sinking thing, because I was just about to say I finally finished chapter 3, but we are on chapter 4. Obviously, is going to get started, but we are also um, getting prepared a little bit for the decided with Olympia's story. Um, just the first, I would say the not the giraffe yet, but maybe the overview of how we will do chapter 1. Um, then I have a few shorts that I have completed or almost done with,
Which are
and
so
then
good.
thank you, and then of course Austria, those little one shots with her, and I'm thinking of the third uh part of the blessing. And then Twist of Fate. That is, I don't know if I want it to be 2 chapters or just one whole big chapter and then an epilogue. So that is something that I'm still kind of,
Wait, did I
um,
hear you right that you're finally updating the blessing?
yes.
Finally!
Yeah, so I'm slowly but surely getting to all the stories. It just takes time, but it is very much worth, the patience. And I
Yes,
thank
it
you
is.
all for the patience because, I like to, any idea that um, I want to convey it as vivid as it is in my mind. So it does take a little while longer than expected, but once I am completed with it, satisfied, it is very it will be worth it once shared. So I just thank you all for the support, and especially Jared because he pushed me to inspired me to start writing again and also pushed me to finish the stories that I've neglected. So I am backlogging myself, but slowly but surely getting them done. and I'm very
Yeah.
much having fun with it all.
I bet. As someone that started off as like a fan of Brit stuff, yeah, I can tell you that when she eventually uploads, it's some pretty dope stuff. And I kid, but it's always good because when you read the final product, there's a lot of tender, loving care into it, and it's much like it's very much appreciated.
Thank you. See,
I may be biased, but I'll take it. I'll take it. Yeah. So stay heroic, everyone. Are you done? Is that it?
Yes, we're done.
All right. Stay heroic, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lame, and Steve Trevor, Steve Never. She belongs to General Zod. He belongs 6 feet in the ground. Zois and Max about for life. See you later, everyone. Bye-bye.